to reign. The Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of diversifying your rental portfolio. I have witnessed way too many investors put all their eggs in one rental basket, chasing the big money maker at the moment. Within a few years, as the market shifts, they find themselves struggling to make a profit. Diversifying your rental portfolio is crucial for real estate investors because passive income should be viewed as a long-term strategy. Here are 5 reasons why you should diversify. Number 1, risk reduction. Diversification helps spread your exposure to market fluctuations and local economic changes, reducing the impact of any single property's performance on your overall investment. Number 2, enhanced returns. Investing in different types of properties like residential, commercial, and vacation rentals, and in various locations allows you to capitalize on multiple growth opportunities, increasing your potential for higher returns. Number 3, income stability. A diversified portfolio ensures a more stable income stream, as downturns in one segment or area are less likely to affect your entire portfolio. Number 4, market resilience. Diversification protects your investments against localized risks such as economic downturns or natural disasters, making your portfolio more resilient to unforeseen events. Number 5, growth opportunities. By spreading your investments across different property types and locations, you can take advantage of unique growth opportunities in various markets, leading to a more robust portfolio over time. So, diversifying your rental portfolio not only mitigates risk and stabilizes income, but also enhances growth opportunities and market resilience, ensuring a more secure and profitable investment strategy. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Tommy Thornburgh. Tommy is president of Prime Corporate Services and is an incredibly accomplished and highly sought-after business advisor with more than 15 years of industry experience in entity formation and tax strategy. His team has helped over 170,000 entrepreneurs structure their business, minimize their tax burden, and maximize profitability. Prime Corporate Services is a proud partner of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. It is an honor to have him on the show, so welcome, Tommy. Good to have you here, sir. You're like a celebrity, by the way, because Prime Corporate Services is everywhere. So welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Your energy is so contagious, and I wish that I was there drinking a beer with you instead of this far away, but we'll make this work.
Perfect. Yes, drinking beer is definitely a good time spent with real estate entrepreneurs. So I am so excited to jump into this interview, and I do want to preface that it is an honor that you all have chosen to partner with Real Estate Investor Growth Network. We have a new coaching program, and you are such a vital aspect of real estate investing, and it's super, super important. So I can't wait to dive in. But before we do that, I want you to tell me about your entrepreneurial parents and how you became an entrepreneur at such an early age.
So my parents got divorced when I was 3 years old, and it really shaped a lot of my future without knowing it. My mom was a real estate agent, and my dad owned a real estate brokerage. So they were both self-employed my whole life. And I kind of joke about this, but I can't believe they stayed together for 3 years. I truly think the only thing they had in common was that they wanted my sister and I to be self-employed. So for that, I am forever grateful. And I learned a ton, and 2008 was an absolute nightmare for my mom, and my dad ended up making out of it pretty well. And I've been able to learn a lot from them through taxes, through real estate, and just through them being self-employed. So it's all I really knew growing up was self-employment and controlling your time and controlling your future.
Very, very good. And tell me about your first job, because it was where? Where was your first job? Or your first business, I should say, not job.
The first job was the best. I worked at a ski shop for a couple years, but the first self-employed, super sexy start was right in your backyard. I was 18. I drove from Salt Lake City to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I knocked door to door. I probably knocked on your door selling pest control. Amazing experience. You're the sales, you're the marketing, you make sure the fulfillment is there. I don't think there's any way I am in the position that I am as quickly as I was if it wasn't for just throwing myself into this crazy experience. And it went well. I made $40,000 in 4 months at 18 years old. And I thought I was really something at that point. I'll tell you that.
Well, my dog hates our pest control person. So, I just saying, but
it wasn't me then.
Cause you like all the dogs. So let's dive into this, because what Prime Corporate Services does and what they're going to be doing for Real Estate Investor Growth Network is you are going to help our people set up entities for their business. And I just want to start with the basics. What is an entity and why is it important?
Great question. An entity is a separate identity. So whether it's an individual, a business, an organization, an actual company, it is a separate personality. It is a separate identity that gives you the ability to operate as an actual business with legal responsibilities. So the beauty of an entity is giving yourself the ability to separate your personal from your business.
Huge. And why is that important to separate everything?
I would say the number one thing that I really like to talk about when this question is asked is you have worked so hard to create your personal identity. And by separating with a separate entity, you give yourself the ability to create what it is that you want for the future. So personal is personal, business is business. I had the opportunity to speak with a billionaire at a real estate event once, and he said, set yourself up with the thought in mind of it's not if you get sued, but when you get sued. And the depressing things about business, you get to give yourself a really solid foundation to separate those two. And I think that's massively valuable, especially if you're just getting started. It takes out some of the concern of not crossing a T or not dotting an I. And I think that's extremely valuable for your mindset to be able to move forward.
Excellent. And thank you for clarifying that. So does Prime Corporate Services only focus on real estate investors?
Great question. We have a lot of real estate investors, tens of thousands of real estate investors that we work with, but no, we don't. We work with all sorts of different businesses. We actually started Prime Corporate in 2012, and our sole focus in the beginning was online businesses. We did a lot of eBay, Amazon, a lot of online retail type stores. So we're all over the map at this point. The only thing we try not to touch is farming. Other than that, we really have kind of touched on everything.
Well, you have made me a liar because I have told everyone, oh, they only focus on real estate investors. That's why they're so good at what they do. But anyway, you guys do have thousands and thousands of real estate investor businesses. So now I want to get into, I was telling you as we were prepping for this, I'm the mouth and the face of our business. And thank goodness my husband is the paperwork guy behind the scenes, and he takes care of all of our entity structures and all that fun stuff. So like I said, it's great to have you here so I could ask you these questions because he just blows me off when I start asking him things. But what is a holding company and why is it important to have a holding company?
Great question. Yeah, holding companies are amazing, and there's not all states are created equal. Holding companies are there to give you an additional layer of protection and an option to pay yourself. So a lot of times with holding companies, based off of the client's needs, we'll utilize it as a strategy for privacy and for protection. And then we'll also utilize it to keep money in order. I say this all the time. If you're going to pay yourself, it's up and out. If you are lending money, it is over and down. And that all comes into the blueprint and the strategy of how you're structured. But holding companies themselves, their primary reason is for additional privacy and additional protection.
So now, okay, because we have 5 entities, 5 LLCs, and we have one, which is our main company. And then we have broken out into our rental portfolio has its own separate entity. We have a 12 unit in Southern Virginia that has its own separate entity. We have a construction company. So we always are out there to protect ourselves, but having the one holding company, all other entities are run through that holding company. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. So the holding company can own the other entities, or what we like to call subsidiary entities. And the reason for that is if I have a holding company and it owns a consulting business and a rental portfolio and another coffee shop, for instance, and someone tries to sue one of my consulting or my rental properties, they don't see that Tommy Thornburgh is the owner and my address where I live. They see that it's owned by this holding company that is owned in a different state in a lot of cases, and in a state that offers additional privacy so that my name isn't even listed, because you can't avoid getting sued, but you can make it more difficult and you can give yourself privacy and protection as an entrepreneur and putting yourself out there with risk in being an investor. So it's a massive benefit for peace of mind and for privacy.
And I mean, you keep talking about protection. So can you just break that out for, the newer people? Why does someone need to be protected in the real estate industry?
Oh my goodness. It is a so happy world
Yes,
that we are
is.
living in. Crazy stat that I pulled up a couple weeks ago. 76 new lawsuits are filed every minute. Isn't that crazy?
I thought you were going to say
over
day.
It's over like 40 million a year or something, just absolutely outrageous. And the top 3 reasons: breach of contract, slip and fall, premises liability, I believe was the third. Don't quote me on that third one, but real estate. And the reality with lawsuits is a lot of those are, the more successful that you become, the larger the target on your back becomes. And even if you only have one real estate property, that tenant believes that you are wealthy because you own real estate.
Yep.
And even if that's not the truth, someone's looking for a quick buck. So setting yourself up with the thought in mind of it's not if you get sued, but when you get sued is massively valuable. I was in my first lawsuit at 22 years old. It was my first ever investment property that I had purchased. And fortunately, I was set up properly. I was doing doing this. This is when we started Prime, was when I was 22, and first one went wrong. So I'm a poster example of why you set it up properly in the beginning.
Well, I've only been served papers. I wouldn't say I was sued, but I was almost sued. I got out of it pretty quickly because it was a window installer who we hired for our property. And he's like, he wanted money, half up front. We don't pay any contractors any money up front. And he said, well, I have to order the windows. And I said, well, we'll just pay the supply company directly. And he's like, no, I get them cheaper, etc. Well, I should have seen the red flags being waved. And so we paid him 50% up front for the windows. He did get the windows, installed the windows. Everything was fine. But about 6 months later, we were served papers because he never paid that window supply company. But in that situation, we had a lien waiver that he signed saying that all materials and labor has been paid in full. So we were protected. But I was like, so you are correct. It's not if you get sued, it's when you get sued. Huge. I can't believe it happened on your first property. That is nuts. So my next question is, why would someone want to incorporate in a different state than where they currently reside?
Yes, this is a great question. So not all states are created equal when it comes to corporate law. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not here to get political. I can tell you that, but no matter what side you're on, there's entrepreneurship that's happening. So the two best states are Delaware and Wyoming. Nevada used to be very
Nevada,
popular.
Yes.
It's no longer a privacy state, and it's very expensive. It's one of the most expensive states as well. So my personal favorite is Wyoming. I have my holding company actually set up out of Wyoming. And the main reason that we set these holding companies up out of Wyoming, they're simple, they're easy, they're less expensive. And speaking of that dog that you were talking about earlier, if you were to send that dog over the border of Wyoming, they might come back with an LLC. It is seriously that simple, which is nice. It's really nice to have a low maintenance entity. But the beauty of Wyoming is if you go to the Secretary of State and you were to look up my entity out of Wyoming, it doesn't say the owner's name. So having that privacy and giving yourself that protection is a phenomenal way to start, because now that Wyoming company can own my other businesses. I have some companies that I own 10%, some that I own 25, 50, 100, so on and so forth. It can own the interest of all of those. So if I have partners and one of my partners has a boneheaded move, now I have the privacy as opposed to my name being listed from a liability standpoint. So privacy is the main answer that you're looking for there.
And then all the, what'd you call it before, the other
subsidiaries.
Oh, I just like that word, subsidiaries. That's a sexy word. So all the subsidiary entities, can those be in the state where you reside?
That's usually what we recommend, because you do have to pay taxes in the state that you are generating income. And the example that I'll share, we actually are fortunate enough at this point, we file some NBA players and NFL players' taxes, and they are extremely complicated. So if you have a game in California at the Staples Center and you're playing the Lakers, and then the next day you're going to Colorado and playing the Nuggets, you actually have to pay taxes in each state that you generate income. And it's the same with a real estate investor. I have properties in Utah, Texas, and Missouri, and I have to make sure that I'm following those guidelines based off the state that I'm investing in.
So that was kind of my next question is, if you own property in a different state, should you open an entity in that state? And so that kind of answers that question. Do you want to go any further on that, or why it's important to have entities in the state where you're doing business?
Yeah, if you're doing like wholesaling or if you're flipping land, it isn't necessary. There's ways around it. But if you are purchasing rental properties, I think it is a great idea to have an LLC out of the state that you're purchasing those rental properties. Simply also to just avoid any additional road bumps that you don't need, right? Opening bank accounts, confusing lenders, things like that just make it easier if you have a presence in the state that you're purchasing rental properties. So I do recommend it for long-term investments.
Huge. And on that same topic, with rental properties, if you're purchasing them across the country, is there a limit on how many rental properties you can have in one LLC?
This is the $1 million question. There is no one right answer, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory here. You ask this question to 10 attorneys, and you're going to get 10 different answers. You ask this question to 10 different CPAs, you're going to get 10 more different answers. So
wow.
Here's kind of what I've broken it up into. I have asked this question to so many CPAs and attorneys. And if you are very, very conservative, or if you're selling LLCs, you're going to tell someone you've got to do a different LLC for every single property. But the reason that I don't agree with that, number one, I think everyone needs to take into consideration their risk tolerance. If you are extremely conservative, you probably want a different LLC for every property, and that's okay. But the more properties that you have, the less inclined you are to separate them out as a whole. So right now, my Missouri LLC, I've got 12 properties in that one LLC. So number one, what is your risk tolerance? Number two, are you properly insured? I think that's very, very important, because those 12 properties are worth about 1.5 million. I've got about 2.5 million in an umbrella policy, so that if they gain equity, I don't have to change the policy all the time. And then the third thing is, what does the equity look like? I care a lot more about 500,000 of equity than I do 5,000, right? And the reason I think that those three areas are so important, they are going to change as your real estate venture continues to pursue and as you continue to grow wealth. So you don't have to do a different one for every property, but you do need to be very aware of what the pros and cons are and what your liabilities are. I think that 12 is probably pushing it. I probably should have only done 10, but I had an opportunity for a duplex that I just said, forget it, put it in there. But yeah, that one, we got to be very aware of your situation on what's best for you.
So this LLC that you have in Missouri, and you have 12 properties in there, say you had a slip and fall in one of those properties, and then they were coming after you. Could they go after the other 11 properties in that LLC?
In theory, they could, but that's why it's so important to make sure that I have proper insurance. Because if the properties themselves, if I've got a slip and fall in property one, you can take all 12 properties because I've got a $2.5 million insurance policy. The insurance and the coverage is worth more than the property value. So save me the headache, take all the properties and let me get the insurance payout, and I'll go buy other properties. But is that ideal? No. Is that going to be a headache? Absolutely. And those are things that we really have to remember as we go. But at this point, I've got 78 doors total, right? So I've got some clients with thousands of doors. Filing taxes for thousands of entities would not only be very expensive,
right,
it'd be very difficult. So as you get more doors, that liability shifts a little bit based off of the overall portfolio.
Excellent answer. And thank you for sharing that. I hadn't even thought about the whole insurance level on top of it. So excellent. Thank you for that. What is the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp in real estate investing? And then should you have different entities, and how do they apply to your business? So for example, if you have passive income and you have a rental portfolio, should it be an S Corp or C Corp? And then your flipping business in a different entity, how should those be? And what is the term? Not rated, but how would you say C Corp or S Corp? How they are labeled? Is that the right word? I don't even know, but
yeah, how they're perceived through the IRS is really what it comes down to. This is a very loaded question. You got another hour here. This is going to take.
I was just told you're short term ones are your S Corp, because S is for short, even though that's not, but that's how I remembered it.
I've never heard that. I like that a lot. I'm stealing that.
Our old friend Rye Guy is the one who taught me that. So, and then the C Corp is where you would put your long-term properties. But anyway, I'm going to let you explain.
So LLCs and S Corps are fundamentally very, very similar. And the reason for that is they both are considered flow-through entities. So what that means is if you have personal income, if you have a W-2 income, for instance, and you have an LLC or an S corporation, it will flow through to one overall tax return. So a lot of times when investors are first getting started, they haven't even done their first deal. We will recommend starting as an LLC, because once you're making active income, which would be fix and flips, wholesales, short term, the S that you had mentioned, then the beauty of S Corps is you get to pay yourself a salary or a distribution. It also allows you to avoid half of your self-employment tax, which is Medicare, Social Security. So it saves you about 7% on that active income. Now, active income is taxed between 10 and 37%. So that's the highest tax rate. That's where we want to take as many deductions as possible. Right. Phone, internet, power, cost of the community, so on and so forth. C corporations are completely separate. They do not flow through. Currently, they have a flat tax rate of 21%. Now, C Corps are great from an asset protection standpoint, but you have to be very careful with C Corps, because if you run money through them, it stays there and then you have to reinvest. If you pay yourself from a C Corp, you could potentially look at double taxation if it isn't set up properly. So I love LLCs because of how simple they are and the flexibility to change the tax election. But whether it's an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp, you're really identifying how you're being taxed when it comes to the IRS. C Corps do provide total separation, but they're a little bit more difficult to manage. So just be aware of that. And we can always, of course, walk anyone through that needs that help.
And the double taxation is no fun. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. So sticking with this, because I do want to get a little bit into the tax portion of your business. Should a real estate investor buy properties in their personal name or in their business name?
This is another good one. You've got them stacked one after another.
I was prepping hard for this interview. I had so many questions.
In a perfect world, you buy them under the LLC. You buy them under the entity or the business, because that's what they are, is business investments. However, let's go back to Missouri. I've been buying these properties in this small town. My cousin lives there, so he's been property managing them for us. And the lender has never seen a business, apparently, because she about fell out of her chair when I told her I wanted to buy them out of an LLC. So the only way that I was able to close was under my personal name. Now, as an investor, the goal is to make money. As an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you to go make that money. So what I did in those scenarios where I had to buy it under my personal name is, once they were purchased, once they were solidified, once the loan was in place, I quit claim deeded them over to the LLC. I told the lender that, and she fell out of her chair once again. She had just gotten up. So we want them in the business entity for the asset protection, but I'm not going to do that if it's going to sacrifice me generating cash flow and future investments. So be aware of that. The goal is to make money. I don't want to lose sight of that, but let's still make sure we have the asset protection in place when we need to.
And myself as a coach, I tell students all the time, always buy in your entity name for the extra layer of protection there. But as you said, it could be a situation with the lender not allowing that. So I did not know that aspect. So that was a very good nugget for the listeners. In that situation, did you have the opportunity to maybe get a different lender for that, or that would allow you to purchase, or the quitclaim deed was totally fine and move on and no big deal?
This town is so small. There are 2 lenders. I kid you not. And both of them would not have done it under my LLC. They only do it under personal names.
That is crazy. So I do want to touch just briefly on the tax services that you provide for real estate investors, and why is it important to have a tax advisor on your team?
Great question. I think this is one of the most important pieces. And the reason for that, you can't choose your family, right? That's what my mom said. Tough luck. Go hang out with your cousins. You can't choose your family. You can't choose your business partner in this scenario. Every single one of us has this silent business partner named Uncle Sam. And Uncle Sam's going to get his. I'm telling you that right now. One of the biggest expenses any investor or entrepreneur will deal with is taxes. So there is a big difference between being proactive and reactive when it comes to tax planning.
Huge.
If you listening to this are the person that puts your documents together in March and April to file your taxes, and you're crossing your fingers to not overpay or to get a return, it's too late.
Right.
It is too late. The only thing you can do is put money into a retirement account, right? Or run a cost segregation study to accelerate depreciation. When we talk about proactive planning, in a perfect world, you break your year up into months or at least quarters: January, February, March, quarter 1, April, May, June, quarter 2, so on and so forth. The fourth quarter is a business shopping spree. Because if you know what your profit and loss is, and this silent business partner, Uncle Sam, is going to come take 10, 20, 30, 40%, you now get to make the decision to invest into a new computer, a new laptop, a new iPad, a new property, something that's going to benefit the future of your business. And without that tax planning piece in place, you will overpay in taxes. And that's what we want to be able to avoid. Track your expenses, have a game plan in place, and be able to invest with the future in mind. That's the beauty of tax planning in general.
So what does tax planning look like with Prime Corporate Services?
So we have quite a few different options. We actually call it value-based pricing, because for someone that's brand new, we don't need to meet with you every month or every quarter. You don't want to meet with us every month or every quarter. It might be once a year before the end of the year. But once you start to build and once you start to grow, we have all of those options. So depending on how often you would like to strategize, we have all of those as options. We have bookkeepers, we have quarterly, we have monthly calls. But at the very least, if we are meeting with you in the fourth quarter, the whole goal is to identify what your profit is. Do you have W-2 income? Do you have active income through wholesaling or through fix and flips? Did you generate passive income through your rental portfolio? And how much did you invest to do so? What are your business-related expenses? Once you know what the profit and loss is, you now know what your tax liability is, so that I can now tell you, Jen, great job this year. You better hurry up and spend $20,000 on your business, or you're going to give it to Uncle Sam, right? So that's really what it comes down to, is what is your profit and loss? What is your tax liability? And what do you want to invest into to better your future? And as long as we make it that simple, now you can go spend money that's going to better your long-term goals.
This is amazing, Tommy, and I do appreciate you taking your time. I know you are a busy, busy person, and we are partnering with Prime Corporate Services. So I would normally say, how would people find you online? But I want people to go to my website, and it is rainmastermind.com. Go to our resource page. We have Prime Corporate Services there. You can schedule a call. You don't have to give your firstborn right away or anything of the sort, but have that first introductory call, and They will walk you through things. And anything else you want to touch on that? How does the process go to work with Prime Corporate Services?
It all starts in that free consultation. It is a free 45 minutes to an hour. And the biggest thing that I can tell you going into that call, it is for you. We have built our business off of building relationships with people like Jen that we know, like, and trust, that we know have done this for a long time. And when we give you that free consultation, we're going to ask you where you are currently, what your goals are, and what the long-term vision is. Because if you're brand new, tell us you're brand new so we can set you up and crawl before you walk and walk before you run. But if you've been doing this 10 years, you have all sorts of properties and all sorts of entities, and you're more interested in how you can cut down on your taxes, let's talk about what that looks like. So the first strategy call is really based off of where you are, where you're going, how we can structure your businesses, or if you're already structured, are you structured properly? And then let's make sure we talk about taxes, because asset protection's great. I want you to be able to set it and forget it so you can focus on generating income. But taxes are going to come every year. I graduated high school. I know all these stupid algebra problems and science, and I'm waiting for algebra to come across this desk. I'm ready.
That is so true. That's very funny. I'm a former school teacher, and I say that all the time. Like, yep, another day went by and I didn't use any algebra. So suck it, math teacher. Anyway, Tommy.
You were the teacher that said, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket your whole life. You hear me?
Exactly. So this has been awesome. I want to move to the second part of the podcast here. And this is where I say that Tommy Thornburgh is a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life, Tommy?
Anything by Gino Wickman and Simon Sinek are absolute game changers. The book that has made the largest impact on my business life is Rocket Fuel. And the reason for that is in the book, Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, he does an amazing job identifying personalities, and he breaks them up into what he calls visionaries and integrators. And the CEO of Prime Corporate, who you know, Steve Harward, is a total and complete visionary. He can look 5 years into the future. And if you are a visionary, you just go and you just make money and you just figure it out somehow, some way. I would say you are more of a visionary, yes, and your husband is more of an integrator, right?
Exactly.
Visionaries are the balloon. Integrators are more the string that hold the balloon down and bring them back to real world. Visionaries make mistakes and are okay with it. Integrators overthink and don't take action. And they are both beautiful. They both work together very well. But if you identify what your strengths are and put people around you that complement those strengths, it absolutely changed the way that I looked at people I wanted within the organization. It changed and identified where people's strengths are. That's got to be it. Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman.
I love it. And I have only read Traction by Gino Wickman. So I had to write that down because
another amazing. We actually designed our company meetings off of Traction with L10s and everything else. We fully integrated that because of that book. Gino Wickman and Simon Sinek, there's another really good one with Simon that's Leaders Eat Last. I love that one as well. Talks about the importance of leadership and building a team. And people don't care about the glitz, the glam, the money. They care how they feel, and they care that they trust you. And it gives you some really good ideas on how to do that. So both are awesome.
Love it. Thank you for those. All right. The first A in BADASS is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? You've given us great advice. So I'm looking at some advice that someone gave you.
I would say, so I've got one of my mentors. I don't know, Roland Frazier. Have you heard of Roland Frazier?
Nope.
He's an advisor, and he works very closely with us. And one of the big things that he always says is tweak, test, and track, TTT. And it's been the reason that I love tweak, test, track is a lot of times people get shiny object syndrome, whether you're a brand new business or whether you're an experienced business, where you're always chasing the shiniest gold object. But tweak, test, track says change one thing at a time, test it for whatever period of time you feel right and stick to it, and then test what those results are. And what I love about that is it keeps you on path for what the goal is without completely changing all of your systems. One of the things that Rocket Fuel mentions is a lot of visionaries and a lot of business owners give their employees whiplash by, let's do this, let's do that, let's do, they're whipping their head all over the place with their ideas. Keep it simple, keep it easy, tweak your ideas, track the results, and allow yourself to make educated decisions.
That's huge. And I think that also applies tremendously to the real estate market because of the badassery bestowment I was saying in the beginning about diversification and just the market is constantly changing. So by tweaking something, testing it, and then tracking it, I think that's a great way instead of just totally moving on to a different, pivot to a different type of real estate investing. So excellent. I love that one. I wrote that one down. I was cramping writing everything down that you're saying. So, all right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
Oh, I'll give you two. I'll give you a vulnerable one and I'll give you another personal one here. So the vulnerable one is absolutely fear of failure. There's no doubt about it. The more that I've realized why I've worked for the first 10 years of Prime Corporate, I worked 7 days a week. It was all day, every day. And it was a lot of my identity, which it still is to this point. But I realized that a lot of it was out of fear of failing, which can be a negative thing, but I think it really was fueled by a positive thing because the work was put behind it. But now a lot of my 12 years later, 300 plus employees, it's my wife and my two little girls. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 10-month-old. And, my 3.5-year-old completely changed my life. My wife has always been super supportive and like crazy for allowing me to work the way that I work and just being an absolute rock star herself. My wife was just always there and supportive and amazing. But my daughter, I was the first time I was like, what am I doing? I want to spend more time with this kid. What in the world am I doing? So, that's the fear of failure, and my little girls definitely, is what drives me currently.
That is lovely. And I saw in part of your bio from a different page that you play pickleball as well. Is that correct? I have never played pickleball.
It's so fun. I used to golf a lot before I had these little girls, but now golf I try and get out there as often as possible. But yes, I have picked up pickleball in the last 2 years. I absolutely love it. I try and play 2 or 3 times a week. It's super fun.
Well, my husband and we are very competitive, and he brought up pickleball recently. I'm like, do I have to beat you at something else? I'm like, come on, just. All right, moving on here. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Oh my goodness. A big goal that we are currently working on is based off of product. So for the 12 years that Prime has been in business, we've had 4 primary products: entity, business credit, tax planning, tax filing, and estate planning. We are in the process of launching a lot of additional technology. We have invested $1 million in the last 2 years into technology. And what the goal is with that is giving people access to financial services that they don't currently have. So one portal that they can plug in their information and it can give them $10,000 to $50,000 of tax savings overnight.
Wow.
We're actually in the process of testing it. It is almost live. It's a 2-year project that we've been working on. And once this portal is in place, we're going to be able to have a place for entrepreneurs and business owners to put their credit cards, their tax information, so that when you have a lender that asks you for your information, you have one login that has everything that they need. How cool is that?
Oh,
It's been
my
fun.
goodness. I just need to have you over for a beer just for that awesomeness. That is amazing. Having been in this for
We've been working on it for 2 years. It has been $1 million investment, and we are right on the verge. We're actually soft testing it for the next 2 weeks, and we should be live with it within the next month or two. But it's been a big lift, and it's taken a lot of our team and a lot of our resources, but I'm really excited for it. I think it'll be a phenomenal add to our clients.
Tommy, that is huge. Wow, I love that. And forgive me, I didn't realize you did estate planning. And so is that creating a trust for people? What does your estate planning leg of your business, what does that provide?
We have a full team of estate plan attorneys. So we do trust, wills, living wills, power of attorneys. I do believe everyone should have a trust. That's the most important one. That's what avoids probate. Wills are great to identify who you want your assets to go to. Living wills are very important. It's not dinner time conversation by any means, but pull the plug or not type deal. And then power of attorney. Who do you trust to make decisions on your behalf for both your health and your finances? And it's not something that I think you do right off the bat if you're a brand new investor, but it's something that you put on the vision board and the why wall next to the nice house and the vacation so that you can protect the legacy you're working for.
And I also want to reinforce that because we just created our trust. And when you are a business owner and you have multiple entities, having just a will, and if that goes into probate with all of those different entities, your people are never going to see any money. So you definitely want to look in creating that trust. And that is awesome. Tommy, thank you so much. All right. I could talk to you all day. All right.
Can I tell you something super vulnerable and funny as well? I've been talking about estate plans for 12 years. I didn't set mine up until my daughter was born 3 years ago. So I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but it was the first time, and I mean this, where I was like, holy shit, I care so much more about this kid than I do myself. And I love my wife so much. She's so amazing, but she's a rock star in her own. My daughter, I was like, all right, it's time. So keep that in mind. There's my vulnerable share of the second vulnerable share of the day. You're bringing it out of me.
Well, I was about 48, 49 when I did ours. So do not feel bad because I thought you were going to say, oh, I haven't even done it yet. But anyway, and it's exhausting.
It's done now.
It's
a lot of work
going through that. Ugh. Anyway, all right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Really good question. So there's two parts to this. The first thing that I would say is KPIs and giving yourself key performance indicators that this goes hand in hand with goals. If you have a goal that's a year out, what are you measuring within that year to truly accomplish and achieve that goal? Whether you're a salesperson, if you're wholesaling, and how many dials a week, what is it going to be, right? Give yourself actual, realistic, obtainable goals to give yourself the pat on the back before you hit the goal. I think that that's extremely important from a system standpoint. The other side with systems, we have made major investments into CRMs. We operate out of Salesforce. We've made major investments into tech. And we do those. The only reason we've really made those investments is because in the fourth quarter of the year, based off the company's tax liability, we are aware that we can make a large investment to be able to see some sort of a return and test. So tweak, test, track. A lot of times those tweaks have financial investments. And a lot of times people are nervous for the financial outlay. If you are aware of what your profit and loss looks like, you can invest into marketing. You can invest into systems. You can invest into whatever it is that's going to better your business and know how it's going to save you tax-wise. So our systems that have benefited our business are in technology. And I'm not saying that they're the same for those of you that are listeners, but if you're thinking, should I do direct mail? What if I waste the money? Should I do this? Should I do that? What if you know what the tax liability is and it allows you to tweak, test, and track? I think having those systems in place are crucial to the long-term success.
You are so good at what you do, Tommy. This has been such a great interview. We are going to wrap it up with the final S in badass. And the final S is for success. What does success mean to Tommy Thornburgh?
Time means success. And I have yet to achieve it. I am an aspiring success story. We've done some really cool things, I'm telling you what, but I have yet to figure out how to modify and balance my life. I still am a workaholic, and at some point I will figure it out, but being able to have time freedom creates memories, and the more time that I can spend to create memorable moments with my little girls will be the ultimate success. I'm getting better, but I am far from there.
Well, Tommy, this has been such a pleasure. And just a reminder for the listeners, if you do not have an entity set up, or if you do have entities and you want to make sure they are set up properly, you can go to reignmastermind.com. That's REIGN mastermind.com/resources and scroll down to Prime Corporate Services. And all you got to do is click on the link and get on their calendar, schedule a call, and they will help you through whatever situation you are in, because you must be protected in this industry. It is huge. So Tommy, it has been an absolute pleasure. You're kind of a little bit of a celebrity in my book. So thank you for being here today. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun. I'm going to fly out and have a beer with you now because this has been great. Thank you. You're the best. I appreciate you.
You're the best. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.